The Israelites left Ramses for Succoth. Okay, hold on. Israel's departure. The Israelites left Ramses for Succoth, about 600,000 on the march, men, that is, not counting their families. A mixed crowd of people went through with them, and flocks and herds, quantities of livestock, and with the dough which they had brought from Egypt. They baked unleavened cakes, because the dough had not risen, since they had been driven out of Egypt without time to linger or to prepare food for themselves. That the time that the Israelites spent in Egypt was 430 years, and on the very day the 430 years ended, all Yahweh's armies left Egypt. The night when Yahweh kept vigil to bring them out of Egypt must be kept as a vigil in honor of Yahweh by all Israelites for all generations. Ordinances for the Passover. Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, "This is the ritual for the Passover. No alien may eat it, but any slave bought for money may eat it. Once ye have circumcised him, no stranger and no servant may eat it. It must be eaten in one house alone. You will not take any of the meat out of the house, nor may you break any of its bones. The whole community of Israel must keep it. Should a stranger residing with you wish to keep the Passover in honor of Yahweh, all the males of his household must be circumcised. He will then be allowed to keep it and will count as a citizen of the country. But no uncircumcised person may eat it. The same law will apply to the citizen and the stranger resident among you. The Israelites all did as Yahweh had ordered Moses and Aaron. And that same day Yahweh brought the Israelites out of Egypt and their armies. The firstborn. Yahweh spoke to Moses and said, "Consecrate all the firstborn to me, the first birth from every womb among the Israelites, whether man or beast, it is mine." The feast of unleavened bread. Moses said to the people, "Remember this day on from which you came out of Egypt, from the place of slave labor, for by the strength of his hand Yahweh brought you out of it. No unleavened bread may be eaten. On this day, in the month of Abib, you are leaving. And when Yahweh has brought you into the country of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, flowing with milk and honey, which he swore to your ancestors that he would give you, then you must observe this rite in the same month. For 7 days you will eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there must be a feast in Yahweh's honor. During these 7 days unleavened bread may be eaten. No leavened bread may be seen among you. No leaven among you throughout your territory. And on that day you will explain to your son, "This is because of what Yahweh did for me when I came out of Egypt. This will serve as a sign on your hand, would serve, or a reminder on your forehead. And in that way the law of Yahweh will be ever on your lips. For with a mighty hand had Yahweh brought you out of Egypt. You shall observe this law at its appointed time, year by year." The firstborn. When Yahweh has brought you into the Canaanites' country, as he swore to you, then your ancestors that he would, and given it to you, to Yahweh you must make over whatever first issues from the womb, and every firstborn cast by animals belonging to you, these males belong to Yahweh. But every firstborn donkey you will redeem with a lamb or kid. If you do not redeem it, you must break its neck. Of the human firstborn, however, those of your own race, you will redeem it. And when your son asks you in days to come, what does this mean? You will tell him, by the strength of his hand, Yahweh brought us out of Egypt, out of the place of slave labor. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, Yahweh killed all the firstborn in Egypt, of man and beast alike. That is why I sacrifice every male first issuing from the womb to Yahweh, and redeem every firstborn of my sons. This will serve as a sign on your hand, would serve, or a headband on your forehead. For by the strength of his hand Yahweh brought us out of Egypt. The departure of the Israelites. When Pharaoh had let the people go, God did not let them take the road to the Philistines' territory, although that was the shortest, in case God thought the prospect of fighting makes the people change their minds and turn back to Egypt. Instead, God led the people a roundabout way through the desert of the Sea of Reeds. The Israelites left Egypt fully armed. Moses took with him the bones of Joseph, since Joseph had put the Israelites on solemn oath with the words, "It is sure that God will visit you," he had said. "And when that day comes, you must take my bones away from here with you." They set out from Succoth and encamped at Etham, on the edge on the edge of the desert. Yahweh preceded them by day in a pillar of cloud to show them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could march by day and by night. The pillar of cloud never left its place ahead of the people during the day, nor the pillar of fire during the night. From Etham to the Sea of Reeds, Yahweh spoke to Moses and said, "Tell the Israelites to turn back and pitch camp in front of Pi Hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, facing Baal Zephon. You must pitch your camp opposite this place below the sea, and then Pharaoh will think, 'The Israelites are wandering to and fro in the countryside. The desert has closed in on them.' I shall then make Pharaoh stubborn, and he will set out in pursuit of them. And I shall win glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and his whole army, and then the Egyptians will know that I am Yahweh." And the Israelites did this. The Egyptians pursued the Israelites. When Pharaoh, king of Egypt, was told that the people had fled, he and his officials changed their attitudes towards the people. "What have we done?" they said, "allowing Israel to leave our service?" So Pharaoh and his chariots harnessed and set out with his troops, taking 600 of the best chariots and all other chariots in Egypt with officers in each. Yahweh made Pharaoh, king of Egypt, stubborn, and he gave chase to the Israelites. The Israelites marched confidently away, but the Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, his horsemen, and his army, gave chase and caught up with them, where they lay encamped beside the sea near Pi-hahiroth, facing Baal Zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were Egyptians in pursuit of them. The Israelites were terrified and cried out to Yahweh for help. To Moses they said, "What is lack of grace of Egypt that you had to lead us to die out and to lead us out to die in the desert? What was the point of bringing us out of Egypt? Did we not tell you as much as in Egypt? Leave us alone," we said. "We would rather work for the Egyptians." We prefer to work for the Egyptians than to die in the desert. Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see what Yahweh will do to rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. Yahweh will do the fighting for you. All you need to do is keep calm." The miracle of the sea. Yahweh then said to Moses, "Why cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to march on. Your part is to raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, so that the Israelites can walk through the sea on dry ground. While I, for my part, shall make the Egyptians so stubborn that they will follow them, and I shall win glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and all his army, chariots and horsemen. And when I have won glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and his chariots and horsemen, the Egyptians will know that I am Yahweh. Then the angel of God, who preceded the army of Israel, changed station and followed behind them. The pillar of cloud moved from their front and took position behind them. It came between the army of the Egyptians and the army of Israel. The cloud was dark, and the night passed, without the one drawing closer and closer to the other the whole night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh drove the sea back with a strong easterly wind all night and made the sea into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went on dry ground, right through the sea with walls of water to the right and left of them. The Egyptians gave chase, and all of Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and horsemen went into the sea after them. In the morning watch, Yahweh looked down on the army of Egyptians from the pillar of fire and cloud and threw the Egyptian army into confusion. He from the pillar of fire. Oh, he he so clogged their chariot wheels that they drove on with difficulty, which made the Egyptians say, "Let us flee from Israel, for Yahweh is fighting on our side against the Egyptians." Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, and let the waters flow back on the Egyptians and on their chariots in the sea, and let the waters flow back on the Egyptians. Oh, let the waters flow back on the Egyptians and on their chariots and their horsemen." Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and as day broke, the sea returned to its bed. The fleeing Egyptians ran straight into it, and Yahweh overthrew the Egyptians in the middle of the sea. The returning waters washed right over the chariots and horsemen of Pharaoh's entire army, which had followed the Israelites into the sea. Not a single one of them was left. The Israelites, however, had marched through the sea on dry ground, with walls of water to the right and left of them. That day Yahweh rescued Israel from the clutches of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the seashore. When Israel saw the mighty deed that Yahweh had performed against the Egyptians, the people revered Yahweh and put their faith in Yahweh and in Moses, his servant. Song of Victory. It was then that Moses and the Israelites sang this song in Yahweh's honor. I shall sing to Yahweh, for he has covered himself in glory. Horse and rider he has thrown into the sea. Yah, Yah is my strength and my song. To him I owe my deliverance. He is my God, and I shall praise him. My father's God, and I shall extol him. Yahweh is a warrior, Yahweh is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and army he has hurled into the sea. The pick of his officers have drowned in the sea of reeds. The ocean have closed them over them. They have sunk to the bottom like a stone. Your right hand, Yahweh, wins glory by its strength. Your right hand, Yahweh, shatters your foes. And by your great majesty you fell your assailants. You unleash your fury, it consumes them like chaff, a blast from your nostrils, and the waters piled high. The waves stood firm as a dike. The bed of the sea became firm ground. The enemy said, I shall give chase and overtake. I shall share out the spoil and glut myself on them. I shall draw my sword, my hand will destroy them. You blew with your breath the sea over them. They sank like lead in the terrible waters. Yahweh, who is like you, majestic in sanctity, who like you among the holy ones, fearsome of deed, worker of wonders. You stretched your right hand out, the earth swallowed them. In your faithful love, you led out the people you had redeemed. In your strength, you have guided them to your holy dwelling. Hearing of this, the peoples tremble. Pangs seize on the people of Philistia. The chieftains of Edom are dismayed. Moab's princes panic has seized them. All the inhabitants of Canaan have melted away. On them fall terror and dread. Near the power of your arm, they are still as stone. While your people are passing, Yahweh, while the people you have purchased are passing, you will bring them in and plant them on the mountain which is your heritage, the place which you, Yahweh, have made your dwelling, the sanctuary. Yahweh prepared by your own hands, Yahweh will be king forever and ever. For when Pharaoh's cavalry with his chariots and horsemen had gone into the sea, Yahweh brought the waters of the sea back over them, though though the Israelites went on dry ground right through the sea. The prophetess Miriam, Aaron's sister, took up a tambourine, and all the women followed with their tambourines, dancing, while Miriam took up from them the refrain. Sing to Yahweh, for he has covered himself in glory. Horse and rider he has thrown into the sea. The journey through the desert. Mara. Moses led Israel away from the Sea of Reeds, and they Moses led Israel away from the Sea of Reeds, and they entered the desert of Shur. They then traveled the desert for 3 days without finding water. When they reached Mara, they could not drink the Mara water because it was bitter. That is why the place was named Mara. The people complained to Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" Moses appealed to Yahweh for help, and Yahweh showed him a piece of wood. When Moses threw it into the water became sweet. There he laid down a statute and law for them, and there he put them to the test. Then he said, "If you listen carefully to the voice of Yahweh your God and do what he regards as right, if you pay attention to his commandments and keep all his laws, I shall never inflict on you any of the diseases that I inflicted on the Egyptians, for I'm Yahweh your healer." So they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and there they pitched camp beside the water. The manna and the quails. Setting out from Elam, the whole community of Israelites entered the desert of Sin, lying between Elim and Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month after they had left Egypt, and the whole community of Israelites began complaining about Moses and Aaron in the desert, and said to them, "Why did we not die in at Yahweh's hand in Egypt, where we used to sit around the flesh pots and could eat to our heart's content? As it is, you have led us into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." Yahweh then said to Moses, "Look, I shall rain down bread from you from the heavens. Each day the people must go out and collect their ration for the day. I propose to test them in this way to see whether they will follow my law or not. On the sixth day, however, when they prepare what they have brought in, this must be twice as much as they collect on ordinary days." Moses and Aaron then said to the whole community of Israelites, "This evening you will know that it was Yahweh who brought you out of Egypt, and tomorrow morning you will see the glory of Yahweh, for Yahweh has heard your complaints about him. What are we that your complaint should be against us?" Moses then said, "This evening Yahweh will give you a meal to eat, and tomorrow morning bread to your heart's content, for Yahweh has heard your complaints about him. You what do we count for? Your complaints are not against us, but against Yahweh." Moses then said to Aaron, "Say to the whole community of Israelites, approach Yahweh's presence, for he has heard your complaints." As Aaron was speaking to the whole community of Israelites, they turned towards the desert, and 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 there the glory of Yahweh appeared in the cloud. Yahweh then spoke to Moses and said, "I have heard the Israelites' complaints. Speak to them as follows: At twilight you will eat meat. In the morning you will have bread to your heart's content, and then you will know that I am Yahweh your God." That evening quails flew in and covered the camp, and next morning there was a layer of dew all around the camp. When the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the desert was something fine and granular, as fine as hoarfrost on the ground. On on the ground. As soon as the Israelites saw this, they said to one another, "What is that?" Not knowing what it was. "That," Moses told them, "is the food which Yahweh has given you to eat." These are Yahweh's orders. Each of you must collect as much as he needs to eat, a homer per head for each person in his tent. The Israelites did this. They collected it, some more, some less. When they measured out what they had collected by the homer, no one who had collected more had too much, no one who had collected less had too little. Each had collected as much as he needed to eat. Moses then said, "No one may keep any of it for tomorrow." But some of them took notice of Moses and kept part of it for the following day, and it bred maggots and smelled foul. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they collected it, each man as much as he needed to eat, and once the sun grew hot, it melted away. Now on the sixth day they collected twice the amount of food, 2 homer per person, and all the leaders of the community came and told Moses this. Moses replied, "This is what Yahweh said. Tomorrow is the day of complete rest, a Sabbath sacred to Yahweh. Bake what you want to bake, boil what you want to boil, but aside what is left over to be kept for tomorrow." So as Moses ordered, they put it aside for the following day, and its smell was not foul, nor were there maggots in it. "Eat it today," Moses said, "for today is the Sabbath for Yahweh. You will find none in the fields today. For 6 days you will collect it, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there will be none." On the seventh day, some of the people went out to collect it, but they found none. Yahweh then said to Moses, "How much longer will you refuse to obey my commandments and laws? Look, Yahweh has given you the Sabbath. That is why he gives you 2 days' food on the sixth day. Each of you must stay in his place. On the seventh day, no one may leave his home." So on the seventh day, the people rested. The house of Israel named it manna. It was like a coriander seed. It was white, and its taste was like that of wafers made with honey. Moses then said, "These are Yahweh's orders. Fill the homer with it and preserve it for your descendants, so that they can see the bread on which I fed you in the desert when I brought you out of Egypt." Moses then said to Aaron, "Take a jar and full it, put it, and in it put a full homer of manna and store it in Yahweh's presence, to be kept for your descendants." Accordingly, Aaron stored it in front of the testimony to be preserved, as Yahweh had ordered Moses. The Israelites ate manna for 40 years up to the time they reached inhabited country. They ate manna up to the time they reached the frontiers of Canaan. A homer is 1/10 of an ephah, the water from the rock. The whole community of Israelites left the desert of Sin, traveling by stages as Yahweh ordered. They pitched camp at Rephidim, where there was no water for the people to drink. The people took issue with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses replied, "Why take issue with me? Why do you put Yahweh to the test?" But tormented by thirst, the people complained to Moses. "Why did you bring us out of Egypt?" they said, "only to make us and our children and our livestock die of thirst?" Moses appealed to Yahweh for help. "How am I to deal with this people?" he said. "Any moment now they will stone me." Yahweh then said to Moses, "Go on ahead of the people, taking some of the elders of Israel with you. In your hand take the staff with which you struck the river, and go. I shall be waiting for you there on the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out for the people to drink." This is what Moses did with the elders of Israel looking on. He gave the place the names Massa and Meribah because of the Israelites' contentiousness, and because they put Yahweh to the test by saying, "Is Yahweh with us or not?" A battle between the Amalekites. Amalekites. The Amalekites then came and attacked Israel at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Pick some men and tomorrow morning go out and engage Amalek. I, for my part, shall take my stand on the hilltop with the staff of God in my hand." Joshua did as Moses had told him and went out to engage Amalek, while Moses and Aaron and Hur went up to the top of the hill. As long as Moses kept his arms raised, Israel had the advantage. When he let his arms fall, the advantage went to Amalek. But Moses' arms grew heavy, so they took a stone and put it under him, and on this he sat, with Aaron and Hur supporting his arms on each side. Thus his arms remained unwavering till sunset, and Joshua defeated Amalek, putting their people to the sword. Yahweh Yahweh then said to Moses, "Write this down in a book to commemorate it, and repeat it over to Joshua, for I shall blot out all memory of Amalek under heaven." Moses then built an altar and named it Yahweh Nisi, meaning lay hold of Yahweh's banner. Yahweh will be at war with Amalek generation after generation.